It lays the predicate and the foundation for the development of a weather satellite that will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer and ultimately to control the weather, and he who controls the weather will control the world.
Question: would the manipulators of the Matrix try to mask, for example, an EMP attack under cover of sensationalized solar storm headlines? Here's the headline: scientists issue urgent warning over solar storm threats. Blackouts, grid breakdowns, internet apocalypse could be on the horizon. That's from the New York Post. Report states solar storms threatening Earth, which could cause cataclysmic blackouts, grid breakdowns, and even an internet apocalypse, according to a frightening emergency drill conducted by coalitions of government agencies. Imagine that. They say emergency exercises conducted by the Space Weather Operations Research and Mitigation, that's SWARM, their acronym, a task force that includes the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and other agencies. Now, they wouldn't have any bad intentions in mind for the population, would they? Like the 2.4 billion rounds of 40 caliber hollow point that DHS purchased in 2012? Nothing nefarious going on there. The report says, unfortunately, participants failed to formulate a good protocol for this catastrophic hypothetical. No surprise there. Chaos, carnage, and collapse. Just the way the controllers like it. Question: what other covert crimes might the Matrix manipulators try to cover up? With reports like the following, more on the same theme from the UK Daily Mail. Scientists warn one of the world's supervolcanoes is awakening. It will plunge the planet into chaos. That's the headline. From that report, a powerful series of earthquakes at a massive supervolcano in Italy has raised fresh concerns among scientists about the risk of a major eruption. They say volcanic gases could block sunlight, keep that in mind, causing years of cooler temperatures. They would sure like that, wouldn't they? And unpredictable weather. We don't have that now already. That would threaten food supplies worldwide. That's all from their report. All fits into their agendas and objectives quite well, doesn't it? Here's another question. Could a few well-placed nukes or an extended frequency transmission into Earth's strata, recognized weapons, help to wake up the sleeping giant? You decide. And another from the New York Post. 3 city-killing asteroids could strike Earth within weeks, generating 1 million times more energy than Hiroshima atomic bomb. The report says Venus is concealing at least 3 city-killer asteroids that could strike Earth in weeks without warning, potentially wreaking havoc upon our planet before we can react. Seems they're planning something, or a whole lot of somethings, doesn't it? Again, yes, just the way the controllers like it, before we can react. And they can blame it all on whatever they want. Nature, the cosmos, maybe the Iranians that seem to be a regular target of blame, though they haven't invaded another country for 250 years, not siding with their culture or their government, simply stating a fact. How many even now think that they were officially told the truth about what really happened on 9/11? Shaking my head. For the record, former behind-the-scenes climate engineering collusion and cooperation between otherwise adversarial nations is now likely breaking down into all-out weather warfare with the vast array of environmental modification weaponry at their disposal. So much chaos and carnage can be wrought around the world and then blamed on nature, or again, the cosmos, in the case of the 3 city-killing asteroids that Venus is hiding from our view. And as far as the weather warfare taking place over our own nation, how many want to blame that on some other country? Is that really a rational belief? Is it really rational to believe that Iran or China is waging weather warfare over our country and our government doesn't know us or they would protect us otherwise? That is a ridiculously naive notion. Nothing happens over this country without it being the direct result of what our own government is doing to us. For the record, our greatest threat isn't solar flares or coronal mass ejections. It isn't supervolcanoes. It isn't covert asteroids hiding behind planets so we can't see them. The greatest danger to the human race is, of course, ourselves. From Bloomberg, This headline: we should know who's paying for geoengineering experiments. From that report, funding is growing as rapidly as the public discourse around its research and development, but it's not a climate change solution. That's an understatement. And as far as who's paying for geoengineering, so that is clear for the record. Too many people think Bill Gates is bankrolling this. That's really not a rational conclusion, is it? Not when those who control the flow of money, the central bankers, can print whatever they want for whatever they want. Bill Gates is simply a prop in the play. He's done a lot of bad things, no question. The record bears that out. But he is not the core of this equation by any stretch. Those who print the money, that's who pulls the strings, period. Trillions of dollars from thin air. I want to read a message sent to geoengineeringwatch.org because it certainly is parallel with what I feel every single day. This is from Sweden. The commenter wrote, I live in southern Sweden, and ever since it became clear to me 3 years ago what is done in our skies, I get more and more upset. He continues, thank God there are people to listen to and question this, but it's mostly from the States and the UK. He continues with this, I have not found a single movement here in Sweden, even though our skies are at least likewise sprayed as yours in the US and other places. Our weather system is completely effed up beyond recognition, and even if one should lack eyes to see with, you sure as hell feel it, both on your skin and in your inner consciousness. There's more from the commenter from Sweden. It's a shame what's going on in plain sight, the worst crime ever. The most scary thing is, he says, is that no one seems to notice. Sure, people admit it's a strange, unusual weather scenario, but no one connects the dots. If you tell them what's going on, they look like big question marks. It's not in their world that something like this is possible. It's impossible to change the weather, they think. He then states the whole situation is frustrating, like screaming in a little room with walls and roof with 2 meters of insulation. I wrote a couple of times to the state-funded weather service here in Sweden, but only get back some BS explanations, lying, false, environmental destroying bastards, he says. How can it proceed? How is this even possible? Question mark. He then states, I've got so many photos and video clips of this, but I don't know what to do with it. This makes me sick. It can drive one nuts. What to do? Question mark. With far too few exceptions, far too many in the ranks of first world nations especially, are behaving with utter contempt, not just toward relentlessly bombed, brutalized, and starved innocents in faraway lands, but also toward the entire web of life on which all of our lives completely and totally depend. It isn't just those that perpetrate the crimes and are profiting from the misery, the whole of the military-industrial complex, but also the endless legions of the masses that are so compelled to ram their collective heads in the sand while the tidal wave of total collapse looms ever larger overhead. Good luck with that strategy. As I cover the following breaking reports, consider and remember that the power structure bought and paid for so-called scientists have actually advocated for the intentional incineration of forests as a form of climate engineering, as a way to mimic the short-term toxic cooling created by volcanic eruptions, which is followed by a protracted warming, a worsened warming. What's the cost of such insanity? The torching of Earth's last remaining forests, the permanent destruction of the planet's last remaining life support systems. For those that are willing to look at the facts and learn more, search geoengineeringwatch.org. Wildfires serve geoengineering agendas. One of our most important short video reports that's more relevant now than ever. Manipulated wind currents will push the Canadian smoke into the U.S., just as was the case in the apocalyptic 2023 Canadian forest incinerations. And keep in mind, the source of ignition is not the point here. What matters is the factor that is creating the conditions for extreme firestorms in the first place, and that factor is climate engineering. Search the Engineering Wildfires section to learn more. Headlines from the UK Independent: Canada wildfires, 17,000 forced to evacuate as forest fires rage across Manitoba. From the Indian Express: Canadian wildfires, Manitoba declares emergency, seeks military help amid mass evacuations. And now about the smoke, which again, serves the geoengineering agenda. From CNN, smoke to pour into the U.S. as Canada wildfires force province's largest evacuation in, quote, living memory. It's not living memory, it's the largest ever, but they always insinuate it happened before, somewhere in the distant, obscure past, because then people think, well, it must not be that bad if it happened before, right? False. That's how they cover up how bad it is. From ABC News, heavy smoke from Canada wildfires to drift into the U.S. States of emergency were declared in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. It's not just drifting into the U.S., it's being manipulated into the U.S., and it will be held down on the ground with an ionosphere heater induced high pressure zone, keeping that toxic element on the ground for as long as possible, exposing as many as possible to the health effects of the same. From CBS News, wildfires in Manitoba, Canada, to send smoke into Chicago area starting Friday. From the CBS report, the fire is more than 1,300 miles away, an almost 24-hour drive, and in a different country. But CBS News Chicago meteorologist David Yeomans, it's Yeomans, explained why the smoke from what is burning in Manitoba will be down Chicago's way very soon. David Yeomans should be sent a link to the dimming and asked to explain his omission of the climate engineering factor in this equation. Remember, always be peaceful and professional. Openly CC as many other aware and awake activists as you can, so individuals like the CBS meteorologists know that many are listening and awaiting his reply. The CBS report then states, in short, all the air will be flowing right toward Chicago from Canada. The CBS report then states the smaller particulates can penetrate deeper into the lungs and get absorbed into the bloodstream, and those are the ones that start to raise the risk of strokes, heart attacks, etc. Let's stop there. Yes, strokes, heart attacks, and a long list of other neurodegenerative diseases. The list goes on, because it isn't just smoke that's in the smoke, is it? And it isn't just whatever else is burning up on the ground. For the record, geoengineeringwatch.org has captured time-lapse film footage of geoengineering jet aircraft blanket spraying directly over firestorm smoke canopies. Whatever that's about, it isn't benevolent. Keep that in mind. Here's more on the why piece of the puzzle. Why would the climate engineers intentionally dry out vast swaths of Canadian forests and elsewhere? From Newsweek. And by the way, before I cover this, you can search on geoengineeringwatch.org, U.S. military exposed forest fires as a military weapon. I believe that's the title. It's under the engineering wildfires section, specifically outlining drying out swaths of forest exactly like it's been done in Canada and many other places for the specific reason of creating the most intense firestorms possible. U.S. military document, 140 pages long. Look it up, examine it, connect the dots. From Newsweek, 6 states where wildfire smoke set to, quote, dim the sun. That's their headline. In case you missed it, dim the sun. Exactly the objective of so-called solar radiation management operations. The Newsweek report continues with this. Wildfire smoke from the ongoing Canadian wildfires will begin drifting into the United States later this week. AccuWeather meteorologists report the atmospheric haze may be so thick, quote, it dims the sun for residents in these 6 states. They continue. The phenomenon is a growing concern due to the reoccurrence and intensity of the North American wildfires, which scientists link to continued dry and hot conditions. Stop. Yes. Continued dry and hot conditions. Wherever the weather makers want it to be so. And let's not forget the climate engineering incendiary dust that settles out on all such target regions covering forest foliage and forest floors. For the record, it must rain more overall on a rapidly warming planet, not less. The laws of physics are irrefutable on this point. The atmosphere holds 7% more moisture for every degree C of warming, and based on unfiltered frontline data, we have already blown past 3.5 degrees C of warming since pre-industrial baselines, almost 7 degrees Fahrenheit, again, from the true pre-industrial baseline temperatures. The planet is spiraling into total meltdown. Weather warfare operations are further fueling the fire. And no, we've never been here before. Those who claim carbon count's been higher before, planet's been warmer before, not under these conditions and not literally instantaneously in geologic terms, and not without an ozone layer that functions. We are in totally uncharted territory, hurtling toward Venus syndrome. That's the fact of the matter. And though climate intervention operations are the single most destructive human activity of all, this isn't to deny the countless other forms of human damage. Why are so many continuing to pretend that nothing but climate engineering is devastating our planet and climate? This is false. This is completely incorrect. This narrative only undermines desperately needed credibility in the fight to expose and halt climate engineering operations. All forms of human activity that do damage, that worsen the now obliterated former energy balance of the planet, are a part of the problem. And that includes incinerating over 100 million barrels of hydrocarbon every single day. That includes incinerating over 26 million tons of coal every single day. That includes cutting down the forest, poisoning the oceans, and paving the planet. Now, add weather warfare to that list. And we are statistically facing an unimaginably dark horizon. Let's add nuclear everything to that. Yes, the horizon is dark indeed. So on a final note regarding the fight to expose and halt the climate engineering insanity, if you want to move this fight forward, build bridges, don't burn them. If the subject of climate anything comes up, respond with this. From any side of the fence, respond by saying, how can we have any legitimate discussion on climate anything from any perspective without first and foremost addressing the climate engineering elephant in the equation? That's how you build bridges and don't burn them. Focus on that hole in the bottom of the boat. If we can plug that hole and keep the boat afloat longer, we can face the other issues and sort that out. So why try at all? So many are inclined to reply in this manner. It's not just a program response, but also a primitive psychological defense mechanism of too many in the ranks of the human race to run and hide from existential threats, to pretend they aren't real. In the coming weeks and months, such strategies of denial will be obliterated with a tidal wave of reality. Wait and see. This is why we must summon the courage to fully face the oncoming storm, because it is our absolute duty to do so. It's not just an option, it's an absolute obligation to the whole, to the miracle of life, to the creator of it all, without which we would never have existed in the first place. Life was never meant to be about Caribbean cruises and World Series games, pizzas and Disney World vacations. Where is the meaning and purpose in any of that? Where is the solace? We, each of us, all of us, are here for a reason, for a purpose. It isn't an accident of fate. And if we collectively summon the courage to stand together and face the gathering storm head on, we will not only expose the legions of tyrants that are actively or passively fueling our collective demise, we may yet accomplish profound good on the wider horizon, even at this late hour and against all odds. We are not alone in this fight. And that which stands with us, that which is behind it all, the first cause, is infinitely more powerful than the collective insanity could ever be. Carrying the fight forward is up to us, each of us, all of us. And no, we don't need to line up in perfect organized rows before we fire a proverbial shot in the battle, like the British did. We fight from behind rocks and trees, like the colonists. Translation: from our own home computers, we locate contacts for every single source, organization, elected official, environmental author, etc., that should be sent a link to the dimming documentary from the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org, and then asked to explain why they are omitting the single largest piece to the planetary collapse puzzle. Again, openly CC as many other aware and awake activists as you can. Make your mail-outs short, peaceful, and professional. If, by our collective efforts, we can fully expose once and for all what's taking place in our skies and the extremely near-term existential threat it poses, we would trigger a shockwave around the world. We would make a quantum leap in the right direction. We would make clear to all those participating in the weather warfare insanity, again, actively or passively, that they are in fact participating in their own near-term demise, as well as that of their own posterity. And this includes our U.S. military brothers and sisters who need to stop with the blind order following and remember the oath they took to protect their countrymen from all threats, foreign and domestic. I'll stop there. Please forgive my rant, but it's hard to hold back with the oncoming train of total collapse being so perilously close to impact and so many completely and totally ignoring it. Back to the Newsweek report titled 6 States Where Wildfire Smoke Set to, quote, dim the sun. According to the AccuWeather report, smoke will be most apparent during the upcoming dry and sunny weekend, and steering winds direct plumes of smoke from wildfires burning across British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba into the northern plains and Midwest regions. That's not nature. That's atmospheric pressure zone manipulation, which in turn manipulates surface wind flows. The report states if the smoke falls lower in the atmosphere, what if? Of course it's going to settle down eventually, right? It could contribute to air quality concerns. What an understatement. Same old could, may, might warning. No, not could, not may, not might, will. And let's add the plethora of climate engineering filth to the mix. Newsweek then states the National Weather Service, NWS, has already corroborated reports of campfire-like smells and sun-dimming effects in affected regions, especially across the Great Lakes. And about the smells and the rain and the mists and the fogs, so many other smells being reported without any fires anywhere. Acidic type smells, burning tire type smells, ammonia type smells. We have no way of knowing what they're putting in the chemical ice nucleating mix or spraying into the smoke canopies. No way of knowing. Ongoing experiment with zero oversight of any kind. And the fact that the population is getting sicker and dumber by the day, another benefit for those in power. Much easier to control. There's more. Just blame the pesky Saharan dust. The report then states meteorologists have noted that Saharan dust, fine particles blown across the Atlantic all the way from Africa, may also enter southern parts of the U.S. later this week. While not directly tied to the current wildfire smoke, Saharan dust events can contribute to hazy conditions and vivid sunsets similar to wildfire smoke and atmospheric aerosol dispersions, all blended together. Wonderful. They then say most of the time the smoke will be high-flying and dim the sun, leading to vivid sunrises and sunsets and causing hazy appearances in the sky overhead. They make it all sound so benign, don't they? It's anything but benign. Newsweek finishes with this. The smoke may reach into the northeast as well, but with extensive clouds and showers this weekend, the smoky haze may be mixed in and not so obvious. That's the way they like it. Yeah, mixed in. Just like the climate engineers' filth being dumped over the smoke canopies and almost everywhere else. Moving on, more Saharan dust smoke and mirrors. From MSN, Saharan dust plume heading for Florida. Here's what to know. A massive plume of dust is drifting across the Atlantic and heading for Florida. This has the benefit, they say, of causing gorgeous sunsets and tampering down tropical development, but it's also a health hazard. The dust plume blocks some of the sunlight from reaching the ocean, part of the plan. Who cares if it's destroying the ozone layer in the process? What's left of the ozone layer, they say, which cools the ocean down a bit. The dry air also keeps potential tropical systems from getting the moisture they need to develop. Let's not forget the U.S. military has been working on hurricane manipulation since 1947. Project Cirrus. Please don't believe me. Look it up. Saharan dust, they say, interacts with sunlight to create beautiful sunrise. They really want to drive that point home, don't they? They all get the same script to read, like Weather Nation, Weather Central, and the Weather Channel, all using the same words like frisky storms and Mother Nature this and Mother Nature that. They all have the same talking points. It's so obvious. It's so alarming. The report says, however, the thicker plumes can partially block out the light and lead to hazy skies, which we have almost all the time anyway, without blaming it on Sahara dust and Canadian wildfires. Let's stop there again for the record. Is it all just Canadian firestorm smoke and African dust that we're inhaling with every breath? No. There is so much more mixed into all of it. Based on rain testing extrapolations, about 500 over the state of Minnesota, conservatively, 40 to 60 tons more nanoparticulate matter is in our skies annually. Highly toxic climate engineering particles, again, dispersed annually. That's a conservative figure, 40 to 60 million tons. Not just a plethora of toxic metals, starting with aluminum, but also copious quantities of polymer nanoparticles, aka microplastics. We aren't just consuming microplastics in everything, we are inhaling them as they settle out of the air column from geoengineering jet aircraft dispersions that are so shockingly obvious in our formerly blue skies, not denying decomposition of plastics in the environment, never denied that. But when scientists from RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic in New York, and again, we'll post this exchange with I had with one of these scientists based on our collections from a NOAA flying lab. These are manufactured particles, not just decomposition. Keep that in mind. On that note, this ongoing and expanding data dump, a breaking headline report from newscientist.com. What are microplastics doing to your brain? Question mark. We're starting to find out. This report states, again, this is ongoing for a very long time, getting worse with every report. The average human brain contains around 7 grams of plastic. Think about that. 7 grams. But the report says it's unclear how this affects us. Now animal studies are revealing links to poor cognitive conditions and weird behavior. What a surprise. That's the new study report conclusion. That could explain a few things, couldn't it? One more breaking report on the subject from Cymex.org. Microplastics are silently spreading from soil to salad to humans. Think that leafy green salad is helping your health overall? For the record, the smaller the form of flora consumed, the more toxins are contained in it. It is less filtered. So, for example, eating a nut from a large organism like a tree, much more filtered. Something to keep in mind. About the climate system as a whole, we can't actually know or understand the overall remaining state of the global climate system unless or until every single component of climate engineering is completely and totally halted, which includes not just the endless jet spray dispersions, but the beyond extreme atmospheric frequency transmissions that are bombarding our atmosphere, which the weather terrorists utilize to manipulate toxic climate engineering elements. Moving on from ABC Australia, an ecological disaster has been unfolding on Australia's coast. They say a mysterious brown foam appeared on a beach an hour south of Adelaide. It was just the beginning of a toxic algal bloom that has now grown to thousands of square kilometers in size, killing precious sea life. And its wake experts say it could be a sign of things to come. Yep. Might be a sign of the end of the world as we know it. For those who don't believe it's that bad, see how long you can hang on to that denial. And as far as that foam, we know they're spraying surfactants over the ocean, massive foaming events. We don't know what else they're dispersing. And in regard to the blooms of toxic elements, when you have UV killing the beneficial elements like the plankton and other microorganisms, and you have a superheating of the surface, all kinds of bad things happen. It's all connected, and climate engineering core to all of it. Not the only factor. Don't go down that road. It's the wrong road. It's an all the above equation. More from Australia, from MSN. Rain bomb stretching 3,000 kilometers about to strike. Here's how wet it's going to get. The report states New South Wales and the previously drought-stricken states of Victoria and South Australia have been hit with a blast of wet and cold weather. This week, as the north of the country experienced warmer temperatures, the weather system has already dumped record-breaking rainfall. Australia is still reeling from devastating floods that hit coastal communities last week, and they're now going to get 3,000 kilometers of, quote, a rain bomb, a flow of moisture 3,000 kilometers long. How many times in this broadcast have I made clear the hallmark of climate disruption operations is unprecedented drought and deluge scenarios, often back-to-back and in close proximity. Climate engineers control the spigot. Historical record, Project Popeye in Vietnam. In the 60s, so successful at controlling the flow of precipitation that INMOD treaties were passed in the 70s, environmental modification treaties. Does anybody think they've gotten less effective at these operations? Is that really a rational conclusion? No. They've been refining them for decades and decades. From the UK Guardian, warm winter forecast for Australia and unseasonal fire risk. That's going to come after the deluge. It's one blow after another. The Aussies are being brutalized. They are indeed not just expendable to those in power, but a rapidly increasing liability, just as is the case with the rest of us, especially in the US, where the expendables are often armed, not something the controllers are comfortable with. Keep that in mind. Speaking of the US, from KSL.com, winter storm could dump up to a foot in Utah's mountains ahead of summer-like warm-up. This is almost a week ago, but it matters. The report says it might be the middle of spring, but federal forecasters, the ones that read the scripts done by Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, private defense contractors up to their neck in climate engineering, everything. These paid forecasters, script readers, say Utah is on tap for a whirlwind next few days with a winter-like storm this weekend before more summer-like warm-up next week. It could also dump heavy rain in the valleys. They need a lot of rain to chemically nucleate to cool things down. That's the scenario. And on that note, gorilla hail. Anybody look that up? That's a term that's used now commonly. Why? First, from thewatchersnews.org, baseball-sized hail and flooding leave over 68,000 without power in Austin, Central Texas. From Fox Weather, grapefruit-sized hail pelts Texas as Memorial Day weekend storms blast south. From that report, Sunday's threat came after parts of the same regions were slammed with severe thunderstorms and flooding on Saturday, with damage to buildings reported in Oklahoma, water rescues in Missouri, and storms tearing across communities in Florida. There were numerous reports of large hail ranging from 4 to 6 inches. Think about that. That could kill you if it hit you. Winds were also whipping during the storms, with 81 miles per hour wind gusts reported in Texas. That's as strong as a Category 1 hurricane. They need the extreme surface zonal wind flows to enhance the endothermic reacting climate engineering chemical ice nucleating elements. That's what's going on here. The degree to which the climate system is being completely disrupted cannot be overstated. From Scientific American, this larger, more dangerous hail is becoming more common. Here's why. Do you think they're telling you why? Actually, no. They're covering the tracks of the climate engineers. From AccuWeather, is climate change making hailstones larger? Question mark. The article then states the last 2 years were record years for large hail reports. Could a warming climate mean bigger hailstones? Question mark. No. Short answer, no. Climate engineering chemical ice nucleation operations mean larger hailstones. You want to see how big they can get when they nucleate over bodies of water like Lake Michigan? Search Lake Michigan ice balls. Take a look at those images. That is not nature. That is chemical ice nucleation. Please take the time to do so, or you won't understand this issue. From New Scientist, Europe increasingly vulnerable to hailstones the size of golf balls. Very large hailstones more than 5 centimeters in diameter, poses a growing threat to Europe as the climate warms, with increasing risk of expensive damage to cars and property. That's not all. Let's forget crops. From NPR, insurance costs are soaring around Tornado Alley. Hail is the big problem. That is the headline. That's not my words, it's theirs. The cost of homeowners insurance is soaring in states where large outbreaks of tornadoes are becoming more common, but it's hail, the report states, not tornadoes, that are the biggest concern for insurers in the middle of the country. This is all new. Keep that in mind. The climate engineers are desperate to chemically cool down what they can, where they can, and they don't care what damage they do on the ground. If you're willing to learn more about this issue, which is essential if you plan to move this fight forward, search the Engineering Winter section on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org. Next, from morningadclips.com, hailstorms are threatening our food supply. What a surprise. They say climate change is fueling more hail and crops are paying the price. No, it's not climate change fueling the hail. Climate change doesn't make flash cool downs. Climate engineering chemical ice nucleation does that. They say hail is becoming more frequent and more destructive. In the last 2 years alone, the number of significant hail events in the U.S. has surged, putting billions of dollars of crops and infrastructure at stake. The report continues, these aren't just statistical blips. Hail damage is now one of the most expensive types of severe weather for insurers in the USA, costing $15 billion in crop loss damage alone, as well as homes and cars each year. The report continues, a single 10-minute hailstorm can destroy an entire growing season's worth of production, especially in vulnerable crops like grapes, apples, berries, and leafy greens. For fruit and vegetable growers, hail doesn't just bruise produce, it breaks stems, tears leaves, and exposes crops to disease. In severe cases, entire harvests are written off. That damage ripples through supply chains, affecting food availability, prices, and farm profitability. You think it's just the trade war affecting supply chains? No, that is a smokescreen for a collapsing biosphere around the globe. Smoke screens everywhere you look to try to keep from public view the oncoming train until the moment it hits. With climate models projecting more unstable weather patterns in the years ahead, the report states the risk is only expected to rise, along with rising climate engineering operations. Let's tell the truth. Why don't these people tell the truth? And it's up to us to try to ensure that they do. Talked about that already in this broadcast. In Australia, hail nets are now subsidized in some regions following back-to-back seasons of weather-related losses. These strategies all paint one truth. Hail is no longer viewed as an anomaly, but a predictable hazard that requires infrastructure-level solutions. That's because they're chemically nucleating every bit of moisture they can put a geoengineering jet aircraft over. That's the fact of the matter. Last blast on the hail problem, chemical ice nucleation for weather modification. From agdaily.com, hailstorms threaten U.S. crops as climate change fuels increasingly severe weather. Hailstorms are becoming a major threat to global food production, and experts are warning that the agricultural sector isn't prepared. No, they're not prepared for weather warfare and chemical ice nucleation operations. That's what they're not prepared for. Short-term toxic chemical surface cooldowns followed by matrix media sensationalized headlines to distract populations from unfolding planetary meltdown and ozone layer functional collapse, which climate engineering is most responsible for. Welcome to the Orbiting Asylum. You're listening to the weekly installment of Global Alert News, the Bad News Broadcast, installment number 512, May 31st, 2025. This is Dane Wigington, your host. Global Alert News is brought to you by Geoengineeringwatch.org, the largest and most visited website in the world on the subject of climate intervention operations known as geoengineering. Global Alert News is aired on a number of AM and FM stations around the country. If any radio station near you is willing to air the GAN broadcast in order to inform their listeners of what Matrix Media won't mention, have them contact us at admin@geoengineeringwatch.org. We will grant them access to our weekly broadcast for free, of course. Recordings of the commercial-free, non-political Global Alert News report can be found on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org under the recent column and on the Dane Wigington YouTube channel. If you're on our email list, please put us on your email contact book so that our mailouts don't go to the spam files. Please help us to share the groundbreaking documentary, The Dimming, which fully exposes the climate engineering atrocities. Over 26 million views now and climbing. The best way to share is by circulating the direct link to The Dimming by email directly from the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org. Sharing directly helps us to overcome social media censorship. By the way, when you share this link, don't worry about commercials in that link because there aren't any. We're here for one reason, to expose the insanity in our sky while there's still anything left to salvage. That is my goal, that is my mission in life, and it will not change. When viewing our YouTube of The Dimming or Global Alert News or any other Geoengineering Watch video on YouTube, please subscribe, share, and comment, all of which helps us to circulate critically important data to a much wider audience. About reaching those that still aren't looking up, here's one way. Start a conversation with Geoengineering Watch awareness-raising materials. They can be found on our homepage. Again, our only goal, provide activists what they need to move this fight forward. Extremely high-quality printed materials, shocking images, pictures worth 1,000 words. We pass these materials on for less than our cost of producing and shipping. We have Geoengineering Watch hoodies and shirts. We have now blue shirts as well. Photos are on our homepage. We have scannable business cards. Those are very effective to lead people straight to The Dimming or our homepage. And bumper stickers, all effective tools to help strike up a conversation on the climate engineering issue. Again, reaching a critical mass, only way forward in this fight. If we can expose it, we can stop it from the inside out. We must awaken our military brothers and sisters to what they are participating in. Again, their own demise and ours. If you're willing to share a picture of yourself with a Geoengineering Watch shirt or hoodie, ideally in some crowded location, please send us a photo so that we can post it as part of our activist compilation, which is part of our materials page. The images encourage others to make their voices heard in this all-important, this absolutely imperative battle to sound the alarm. To all those that are steadfastly committed to exposing and halting the climate engineering insanity once and for all, you have my deepest gratitude forever. It's our collective efforts that can still make a difference at this late hour. From MSM, the climate crisis may be worse than we're being told. There it is again. Could, may, might. Let's correct that headline. What's unfolding is unimaginably worse than anything we've been told. The controllers want the herd to know things are bad, but not soon to be extinct if we don't alter our current course bad, lest the herd panics before the controllers are ready to head to their underground bunkers, because that's exactly what they plan to do. Back to the MSN report, the world's oceans absorb more than 90% of the heat trapped by greenhouse gases, and climate engineering particulates also trapping heat. And this is having devastating effects. In 2024, sea surface temperatures in the North Atlantic were consistently higher than anything recorded before, with some regions reaching a full 2°C above normal. No, that's so patently false. It was so much higher. There's places, in fact, in the Arctic that recorded sea surface temperatures about 20 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. totally underreported reports. That is the case across the board. People think it's not as bad as we're being told. It is exponentially worse than we've ever been told. I've said that from day one at geoengineeringwatch.org, and now we see that again and again and again from scientists. Oh my God, it's way worse than we thought. They're not telling the truth because they want to now redeem themselves. They simply can't hide it anymore. The report says this has already led to mass coral bleaching events, particularly in the Caribbean and the Great Barrier Reef. Been there twice on reef expeditions, where scientists estimate over 50% of corals have died since the late 1990s. It's way more than 50%, by the way. Ocean acidification caused by carbon dioxide dissolving into seawater. By the way, how many people hear carbon's great, the more the better? We need to burn more. Tell that to the oceans that are dying by the day. Oceans die, we die, simple equation. It's much more complicated than just something is good, more is better. Put your head underwater for 15 minutes and see how well you do. Have to have water to survive. Can't make it 2 or 3 days without it. You have to have balance. There's no more balance. The atmosphere's former equilibrium has been completely and totally obliterated. You can't do that in the geologic blink of an eye and expect anything to do well. And let's add all the toxins now. The entire planet is completely and totally contaminated. You can't just make that magically go away. They say the acidification is making it harder for marine life to survive. Correction. Marine life isn't surviving, it's collapsing. More MSN. Shellfish, plankton, and fish populations are dropping precipitously, threatening food chains and economies alike. Again, back to the smoke screen of trade wars, empty food shelves. It's biosphere collapse, doing everything they can to distract and divide the population so they don't see or understand what the oncoming train is. These changes aren't distant possibilities. The report says they're unfolding now faster than many experts predicted. There it is again. Faster than the experts predicted. Who would have thought? Again, for the record, from day one, Geoengineeringwatch.org has stated at the top of our lungs that the planetary damage was exponentially worse than anything officially disclosed. There will be no hiding that fact for much longer, which means the controllers will be more desperate and dangerous than ever before. Keep that in mind. And for those that are still clinging to the false notion that so-called elected officials and their appointees are going to save us from ourselves, think again. And their political stripe means nothing. With a few courageous exceptions to what I just stated, and they know who they are, the entire system of so-called government is state-sponsored mafia. Nothing less. And we need to give all our support to those very few elected officials that are maintaining their honor and their virtue and their courage at all costs. Give them your support. They're not hard to recognize. Moving on. From Newsbreak.com, Lake Mead in for a painful summer after dry winter. That's the headline from the report. Rapid snow melt across Utah. Let's stop there for a moment. The snow is not only melting rapidly because of the scorching temperatures in UV, it's sublimating, which means there's not as much runoff. Why is it sublimating? Because it's not a naturally nucleated element. It's chemically nucleated. The extreme form of this is dry ice. Zero runoff, none. So when the snow sublimates, it transitions from a solid to a gas. Much of the moisture bypasses the liquid phase, not much runoff. Thus the problem in focus here on this headline. Colorado and New Mexico pushed some basins from above average snowpack to snow drought conditions in under a month, for all the reasons I just cited, with snow disappearing up to 4 weeks early, for all the reasons I just cited. From the UK Guardian, Colorado River Basin has lost nearly the equivalent of an underground Lake Mead. The reservoir lost 27.8 million acre feet of groundwater in 20 years. Study finds vanishing twice as fast as surface water. That does not bode well for about 40 million people in the Southwest. So for those that were trying to convince themselves that the Southwest U.S. water woes had magically gone away, no. The great drying and dying is just getting started. Climate engineering operations, should say climate disrupting operations, are greatly accelerating the process on top of the endless list of other human activities and assaults against our formerly thriving planet. Yes, the human race has trashed the planet in the geologic blink of an eye. Moving on. How are our oil pumping friends in the Middle East doing? Not so well. From thewatchers.org, UAE breaks May temperature record 2 days in a row, reaching 51.6 C, that's about 125 degrees Fahrenheit in May. Saturday's extreme heat was part of a wider pattern of unusually high temperatures affecting the country. This record-breaking event follows an abnormally hot April in the UAE, where the average daily high temperature reached 108.9 9.7. That's the average daily high. Think about that. In April, from extremetemps.org, absolute insanity in Africa and Asia. Heat records destroyed from Japan to Algeria to South Africa. From miningand-energy-news.com, Spain roasts in African May heat wave. Temperatures hit 40 degrees C in spring shock. From BBC, glacier collapse buries most of Swiss village. Yes, the mountains are thawing and collapsing. Just the beginning. If you have not seen a film of this, search it online. You will be absolutely shocked at the magnitude of this event. Footnote, 2 reports to look up and examine. Just for the record, silent weapons for quiet wars. Again, climate engineering, covert weapon of the global controllers, weapon with which they can and are bringing populations to their knees without those populations ever even knowing they were under assault. And this, Owning the Weather 2025. Enjoy your reading. Question, what else is coming down in all the jet-sprayed geoengineering nanoparticles? From ABC News, an ongoing story that just keeps getting worse. Global warning over fungi that could eat you from inside out. That's the headline. Researchers have warned that a mysterious fungi that kill millions of people worldwide each year may soon spread significantly further. In a chilling echo of the popular video game TV series adaptation The Last of Us, a post-apocalyptic story about survival in a world ravaged by fungal infection, the fungi could soon spread across North America, Europe, China, and Russia. They want to drive this home every single week, it seems like now, doesn't it? And getting worse with every report. Aspergillus, a group of fungi that can cause life-threatening lung diseases, may move globally. Fungal pathogens will likely impact most areas of the world in the future. End quote. Keep in mind that at absolute minimum, saturating the atmosphere with nanoparticles from the climate engineering operations is at absolute minimum providing fungal proliferation platforms everywhere. That is not even to take into account what they are including in these dispersions, what's coming from the hundreds of biolabs around the globe. Do we really think that they wouldn't do this to us? They already have. We know, again, I cite many times as of 1977, according to the Washington Post, no less than 239 open-air biological tests had already been conducted on innocent, unknowing U.S. civilians by the U.S. military. Do you think they're doing less now? Really? Let's add this from theatlantic.com. The man-eater screwworm is coming. That's the headline. For the record, engineering insects and then releasing them is nothing new for the controllers. Not opinion, again, historical record. Anyway, from the report, the United States has for 70 years been fighting a continuous aerial war against the New World screwworm, a parasite that eats animals alive, cows, pigs, deer, dogs, even humans. Its scientific name is C. homnivorax, which translates to man-eater. Larvae of the parasitic fly chew through flesh, transforming small nicks into big, gruesome wounds. But in the 1950s, the U.S. Department of Agriculture laid the groundwork for a continent-wide assault. Workers raised screwworms in factories, blasted them with radiation until they were sterile, or at least they want us to believe that, and dropped the sterile adult screwworms by the millions. Even hundreds of millions, the report states, weekly. Hundreds of millions dropped weekly over the U.S., and eventually, the report states, over the rest of North America. Anyone who thinks they're not engineering things in this arena needs to wake up and look at history. It's not just screwworms that they, according to this very historical report, were distributing by the millions every single week. Mosquitoes as well. No secret on that. Ticks. Search Plum Island. Learn about that fiasco and Lyme disease. So much people don't know because they don't want to know. They don't want to hear it. They want to pretend that their big brother government is here to look after them. How's that going so far? And if you think it's been bad, you won't like what's coming in the coming weeks and months. You won't like it at all. Wait and see. Moving on, full throttle till the moment of impact. From Reuters, U.S. EPA drafting plan to erase greenhouse gas limits on coal and gas-fired power plants. U.S. Environmental Protection Agency confirmed that it was drafting a plan to eliminate all limits on greenhouse gases from coal and gas-fired power plants in the United States. Do you think these people have any interest whatsoever in stopping climate engineering, which has allowed them to keep business as usual by confusing and dividing the population on the true state of damage already done to the climate when they engineer snowstorms in New Orleans and Florida while it's above freezing and raining in the entire polar region, Greenland, Iceland, Siberia, Alaska? while there's blizzards on the Gulf Coast, and you think these people have any interest in stopping this, and they throw out a little tidbit here and there pretending they're going to fight the issue by holding accountable two clowns from Silicon Valley that launched a few balloons, or some other excuse that it's just jet exhaust. Smoke and mirrors. No interest in stopping this whatsoever. And again, for the record, Maha everything means zero, zip, nothing, nada, unless or until the dispersions in our skies are fully exposed and halted. Keep that in mind. With the kind of criminal denial in mind that I just went over from NBC News, lead from gasoline blunted the IQ of about half the U.S. population, study says. Leaded gas was banned in 1996, but exposure to the poison cost people born before then, which is a lot of us, several IQ points on average, researchers estimated. For people born in the 1960s and 70s, which includes me, when leaded gas consumption was skyrocketing, the IQ loss was estimated to be up to 6 points, and for some more than 7 points. Exposure to it came primarily from inhaling auto exhaust, which I had plenty of in Southern California. Are we to think these people didn't know that? How smart might all of us have been had we not been poisoned our entire life from every imaginable direction? Report states clearly lead is a neurotoxin and no amount is safe. That's obvious. No amount of aluminum is safe. No amount of mercury is safe. There's no safe limits to a toxic element. While I'm finishing this report, keep the aluminum factor in mind, which I will get to in a moment. The number of people affected by lead exposure is staggering. On a population basis, shifting the average IQ down even a small amount could have large consequences, with more of the population at what was once the extreme low end of IQ scores. In addition to being linked to lower IQs, leaded gas has also been associated with heart and kidney disease. Do you think those in power didn't know this? Really? The toxin's damage can show up years later, the report states. Lead exposure is believed to put people at risk for chronic age-related diseases, including cardiovascular disease and dementia. Lead is a never-ending story. That's from the report. Yes, a never-ending story, just like the now ubiquitous contamination of the entire planet with highly toxic aluminum nanoparticles core to the climate engineering operations. And for the record, aluminum and lead can exhibit a synergistic toxicity, meaning their combined effect is greater than the sum of their individual effects. This synergistic effects can manifest in various ways, particularly impacting the central nervous system and other organs. Do you think those in power don't know this? Think again. So, what are we to do? What can we do? Far more than most dare to believe possible. Sun Tzu said the expert in a battle moves the enemy and is not moved by him. That's from The Art of War. From Native American culture, this: greatness is determined by how mighty your enemies be. My distant lineage is Choctaw. Over so many years, during so many challenges, I believe I have felt the presence of my ancestors and what they were forced to endure. Question: which countries are using chaos, carnage, oppression, and starvation as a weapon of war? Does one stand out? How long till the victim population list goes exponential? When it comes to bad news, aka unwanted news, primitive mental defense mechanisms in the brain take over. Ideology, preconceptions, and programming take over. There are far too many who, though they are aware of and against the weather, biological, chemical warfare in our skies, knowing that our own government is behind it all, but these very same people then staunchly defend the false narratives fed to them, especially about countries abroad, by the same government that is spraying them from the sky. Why? And when will the Stockholm Syndrome stop? Expect to be held in great disdain by the vast majority if you dare to tell them the truths that they absolutely don't want to hear, let alone to face. Throughout the ages, numerous cultures and visionaries have predicted or perhaps foreseen the coming and inevitable end of days, the end of the age of man. Was it mystical, or was it rational deductive reasoning? Man's ability to create and wage destruction is only exceeded by his inability to comprehend the catastrophic consequences of his actions. Given the general lack of foresight and moral fortitude with so many in the ranks of the human race, such a story could only end badly. Man is a part of nature, and his war against nature is inevitably a war against himself. Words of wisdom from Rachel Carson. But as dark as the horizon is, as I have stated on so many occasions, we are not helpless, and those in power are not gods. Stand and be counted. Make the most of the time you've been given. Remember what matters and what doesn't. Remember what is in your control and what isn't. Focus on what is, and you may realize results far beyond what you ever dreamed possible. Everything is in the balance. Fully exposing and halting the weather, biological, and chemical warfare in our skies is the great imperative of our time. Check the activist suggestions link on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org for specific instructions on how you can help to move this fight forward. Please, make your voice heard, make every single day count, which you will never, ever regret. Until next week, this is Dane Wigington from geoengineeringwatch.org.